my fellow person, a lot of the way that I'm communicating with my fellow person is going to be based on the things that I learned at home, for good or for bad. For good or for bad. And we see this a lot. How many people here are in the world of social work, social services, or psychology, or education, right? You see situations, kids in the classroom who are acting in a certain way. You know, it doesn't take too long to go back and follow the trail to what's going on at home. We see this all the time. Anybody in the medical profession? I know people who are in the medical profession who are doctors in the emergency room, for example. Okay, situation comes in. Okay, they're going to be able to tell very quickly. They're going to be able to root it back to what's happening in the home life. So it's very interesting that the concept of what, right? And the same thing works in the other direction. Somebody comes and you're working with somebody in the workplace, and wow, they're acting like a real, what we say in Yiddish, a mensch. A mensch is very upright, polite, respectful. Where did you learn to act this way? What are they going to say to you? At home. At home. So there's this beautiful connection, this beautiful deep idea between peh and bite. And there it is, right inside. You see it for yourselves in the letters in front of you. It's a very beautiful, simple, but hidden a little bit. These ideas, they're so sweet, and yet we need to kind of take it back to them a little bit. You know what I mean? Let's take a look at another idea. This one I really love. Let's take a look at that third letter. Again, the third letter is going to be Gimel. On the screen up there, it's the top row, third letter from the right. Also on your sheets as well, you see there's a lot of letters connected to it. I'm going to write the letter Gimel. Has like this kind of a thing going on, and then it kind of comes like this. Looks like what?
A high-heeled shoe.
It looks like a high-heeled shoe. You know what?
From the
You're my
70s.
volunteer. Come on up.
From the
Oh, no.
70s.
What's your name? What's your name?
From the
Jody,
70s.
get on up here, Jody.
Oh, no.
Jody says this looks like a high-heeled shoe.
Well, it does on the paper.
Yeah. So I'm gonna tweak that a little bit. I'm gonna say that it could be somebody in a high-heeled shoe. It actually looks to me, since we're talking about moving from right to left, and as we begin to understand, and you really nailed it, Jody, that actually these letters, in a sense, do have a life force to them, okay? Because, you know, it's got a high. And so I'm going to say that, Jody, I'd like you to become a gimel. This is a gimel.
A gimel?
This is a gimel.
You want me to be a gimel?
This is a gimel. It's called a gimel. And I think what's happening is the gimel is enshrined. The gimel is kind of like walking in this direction. See the legs? Your high-heeled shoes? Your high-heeled shoes are actually going in a certain stride. Okay, so you're gonna hold on for a second because there's another important letter, Jody. We're good?
Yeah.
Okay, good. There's another important letter that follows gimel. Take a look at the letter that follows gimel. What is it?
Dalet.
Dalet. Dalet. Yeah?
So gimlet and dollop.
So Gimel and Dalet. So here's something really interesting, Jody. The Talmud is the book of rabbinic writings. The rabbis wrote the Talmud. The Talmud is strangely called the oral law, which is funny because it's written. And so it's the oral law that's written. But it's based on the idea that the Torah was given over to Moses on Mount Sinai. And we know about the written Torah. But then there's this oral Torah, this kind of this stuff that didn't get written down, but got passed along from generation to generation. It's kind of like if you were like studying in a university course, let's say geography, and I couldn't make it to class, and I said, Jody, can you take notes for me? It's on plate tectonics, for an example. Okay, since we're in California, might as well talk about plate tectonics. And so the next day I ask you, what did we learn in class? And you read from the notes, and then I ask you a question about what the professor said. You said, well, I didn't write that down, but this is what he said. That would be like the oral tradition, okay? The oral law. And the rabbis say some pretty crazy things in the oral law. And some of these things that they say have, like, just to get our attention. For example, one of the things is they ask the question, would it have been better if people would have been born with webbed hands or not? Now, the fact is we're not really born with webbed hands, but it leads to an entire discussion about whether that would be a good thing or not. And then they discuss yes, they discuss no, and finally they say, no, it's good that we weren't born with webbed hands, because if we were born with webbed hands, we would have the illusion that we could catch time. And therefore, we should understand that time, like sand, goes through our fingers, and therefore we should appreciate time. So one of the other things that they bring up is the following. They say Gimel and Daled, the third and the fourth letter of the Hebrew alphabet, don't ever separate them. Like, I have nothing better to do on a Wednesday evening except take the Daled and move it to like the 12th letter of the alphabet, right? You know, and no, like, what are they talking about? What are the rabbis talking about? That we should take the letters and we should take the Gimel and the Daled and separate them. It doesn't make sense. Unless we ask the question, why are they important as letters that follow each other one after the other? So, I need a volunteer to work with Jody to be a Daled. We have a volunteer?
Linda.
Yes, come on up. You're sitting in the front row, it means it's very dangerous.
Go, monkey.
You're doing great. So we now have, you can put that sheet down and you'll need both your arms. Actually, you will, yes. Now, come on over a little bit this way. And Jody, come on this way. We're going to need the white backdrop here because this is going to be a great photo op. You're going to be
You're a Daled?
He's a Daled. Tell me your name again.
Monty.
Monty is a Daled. Jody is a Gimel.
Yeah. Okay, I know you.
She's a grandma.
You want to trade? You want to be my
No, you're doing great. Now, here's the interesting thing about why did the rabbis say don't ever separate a Gimel and a Daled? Well, for one thing, Gimel is coming from the word gimilut, which means to give. It means that you're a giver. And a Daled comes from the word, surprise, surprise, dal, which means to receive. Now that's really kind of interesting, isn't it? Because the relationship between giving and receiving is so important. It's so important that in the English language, if I were to ask you what the opposite of giving is, what do you think in English it would be? No, taking, exactly. Exactly, but in Hebrew, the opposite of giving is receiving. It's a big difference. I'll show you for an example. If I said to you, I want to give you this marker, I've owned it all my life. It's very valuable to me, it's very special, it never leaves my side. I'd like to give it to you, and you go ahead and take it. Go ahead, take it. A little bit of attention there. Maybe I wasn't so interested in freely giving it over. It's possible.
No resentment.
A little resentment. But Jody, let's do it in the Bible language now. I want to give you this marker that's been so dear to me. It's been with me my entire life. I really want to give this to you. And now let's do it in terms of the receiving. How are you going to receive this? What do you do?
Gratefully.
Show me. Show me what you're going to do to receive this. Ah, ha, ha, ha. Jody has presented me with a vessel in order to receive something. So the first thing you have to do is you have to prepare a vessel. Is this vessel strong enough to receive what I'm going to give you?
I don't know.
I don't know either. Okay, because no, that's a very important point, because if your vessel isn't strong enough, then this may come crashing through your vessel, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here's what we're going to do. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Was there any tension or any friction or anything going on there? Any resentment going on there?
No, just fear. Fear that I was going to drop it.
That's a healthy thing. I'll have to take that. Very, very important. The
I'm
concept
getting ahead of you there.
You're doing great. The concept of giving and receiving is an extremely core concept in the Torah. Core concept. And we never had for a moment ever thought about the idea that giving and taking would ever be opposite each other. It would only be giving and receiving. It's a very, very powerful idea. So powerful that the letters that represent giving and receiving, the rabbis say never ever separate them. Let's see how that looks. You're not going to be the gimel. I want you to be in stride and facing, we read from right to left, so you're going to be moving in this direction. You're going to, okay, separate a little bit more. You're really more in stride. Come on, you're really,
No, you don't know. I have a physical therapist. This is the part I can put.
you're doing great.
Thank you.
Okay, next is there's kind of like your head. We're going to need, you're in the process of giving. Remember, you're a giver, so your hands have got to be, here's the hands, you've got to be, that's good. Oh, really,
Oh, bring it a little closer.
Wow. Can everyone see Jody?
Yes,
Does she look like a gimel?
yes.
I think she, what a beautiful gimel. Okay, freeze. You're doing great. Can you freeze? You okay?
Yeah, for a while. Not a long time, but yeah,
Do you want to be replaced by somebody?
yes.
Go ahead, sit down, please. You're doing amazing. Please, let's show our appreciation to Jody. Come on, sir.
Reed.
Okay, Regan, you are now going to be the gimel. Okay, I need a good stride out of you. A little more. Okay, good. This is perfect. Excellent. We got a great gimel going on here. Okay, you're the dollar. You're close by, and not that close. There you go. And your hands/head are, as you can see, extended forward. Take a look at how that's actually it's even more. So walk your elbows. No, that means straighten them. Okay, good. Let's take a look at that. Is that almost a dollar?
Yeah.
Except we're missing one important thing. Take a look at your sheets.
There's a
There's a what, Jody? What did you say, Jody?
There's a
Almost
scapula.
got a crown.
Okay, you're right. Look at the dollar. What's missing from the dollar here?
The little edge.
The little, we call it the schmitz. Okay? The schmitz. We need to do a little, it's got to be a little bit like, almost like this sort of a thing. Okay. How many people have you done Israeli folk dancing, right? Da 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 da. Okay, you've done that before? I like humiliating myself. Okay, so a little bit more, okay. Wait. Can you bend your hand a little bit more? That's what you do. Okay, stop that.
Hold on down.
Okay, now. Let me Monty's a great dollar, right?
Yes.
And your name again, sir?
Regan.
Regan is a great gimel, but look what's going on here. The gimel is facing the dalet. The dalet is facing away. Dear friends, when you're in a place sometimes where you have to receive, it's very hard to look at the person who you are receiving from. Okay? I don't know if you've ever been in a situation like that or know people who've been in a situation like that, but sometimes you can only look away. So the dalet is looking away. It's very, very hard to receive sometimes. But the hand is coming back in order to do what? To receive, which means, right, we've got the gimel, which is the giver, the dalet, which is the receiver, but I've got a real kind of like, I want to turn this entire thing on its head. You ready for this? If it weren't for the dalet and his hand going back that you see on your sheet, if it weren't for that, what would happen to the gimel? Huh?
He'd be sad.
He would not only be sad. Sad is an emotion. I don't want emotion. I want reality. What would happen to the gimel if the dalet did not have his hand back?
He wouldn't be able to give.
He wouldn't be able to give, and if his entire identity is to be a gimel, he would completely be devoid of his entire identity. There would be no role for the giver. And therefore, in a world where we think that the great person is the giver and the poor Slav is the receiver, what does the Torah do here? Makes them equal, and possibly even that the receiver is actually doing the real work. That the receiver is actually doing something in order to enable the giver. Do you see that? Powerful idea, beautiful idea. Thank you, gentlemen. You did a great job.